All right, Feisties, welcome back. It is your favorite Feisty Triathlon podcast. I'm Kelly O'Mara. I'm here with your host, Joanne Murphy, Katie Zafaris. And this week we have Dr. Erin Ayala joining us, who is our resident Feisty sports psychologist and the host of our brand new Feisty Women's Performance podcast. So she's going to be answering all of Katie's mental training questions.
All of them.
No one else is invested, huh?
Right. But I wanted to first, not to start out super serious, but Erin, you live in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. Minneapolis has been the target of like the largest federal agent immigration enforcement. Lots of protests, lots of arrests, lots of unrest. How are you doing? How is it going?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's been tough, especially as a psychologist, because I'm supposed to have my shit together. Right. And then helping everyone else navigate something that I never would have thought we'd have to navigate. I think the way to think about it, especially, and I work with nearly all athletes and coaches, and 80% are endurance. And it's really a matter of recognizing that even if we feel like we're not directly being affected, we're all being affected because of what we're absorbing on social media and the news cycle, and our nervous system is picking up on that stuff. And so I think myself included, and a lot of folks in the community are feeling this kind of just like nervous system activation, where our nervous system is just on the fritz, just like more exhaustion, harder to focus and concentrate, less productive than usual. Training might feel like more of a chore. And then I think a lot of us also, myself included, have mixed feelings about like, why am I training for this arbitrary race in 8 or 12 weeks when it feels like the world is coming down and crashing around me? Like it feels, there's a lot of dissonance there. Like, who am I to worry about my tempo run this afternoon when people are getting detained, right? So there's a lot.
I have seen more and more athletes also talking about this, like you said, kind of like how to balance that all of that, especially like there's a big running community in Minneapolis, and some of them said they've been picked up, or even just trying to get their runs in. Do you have advice for how people can kind of navigate all?
Yeah,
I know Joanne's in the UK and they don't have all this chaos, but it is a very...
Excuse me, sorry, point of correction. I'm in Ireland.
You're in Ireland. I don't know. I never know where Joanne is in the world
I'm in
now.
Ireland. I'm actually in Galway in my house tonight. I made it home just in time. I am in Ireland, not in the United Kingdom.
But it's still, my point is, you don't have the same news the US has right now, but it's been a tough time, I think, for a lot of people. Yeah.
No, we only see what's shared to us on social media platforms and things like that. I'm sure a lot of your international listeners wouldn't really understand what's happening with the boots on the ground in Minneapolis and stuff. So we only see from afar what's happening, but obviously it does actually affect everyone. Like, just because it's happening in one part of the US doesn't mean that it's not affecting us when we look at it and we see it. And it's humanity, basically, at the end of the day, so we all have the compassion and the empathy for the people that are affected. So whilst we're not living through it, we're also seeing, we are seeing things like, what's going on in Greenland and Denmark, and not having a political, statement here, but there's lots going on in Davos in Switzerland at the moment at the summit, and, there's lots going on. So we're all absorbing it, because what happens in the US actually affects the rest of the world, simply. There's no two ways about it. So so when you talk about nervous system dysregulation and little bits of anxiety, and kind of, thinking about, wow, where is this going to end, or what's the destination, what's going to happen? It is in, you wake up in the morning and the news feed is full of what has happened overnight for us. And I'm sure it's the same for you guys. So yeah, it's interesting times, to say the least, but we only see what you guys are going through, so yeah.
And I think especially like endurance athletes, especially triathletes, like to plan. And so it's like, when we don't know what's coming and we don't know what's next, that makes it really difficult from just that, again, that nervous system, because we like to know what's coming. The nervous system wants to know, like, okay, what's going to go down for the rest of the day. And so then when you just don't know, and then the social media is filled with and of course the algorithm, the second you watch one video, then the rest of the videos are all about that, right? So it's really tricky. I think
even
the
in
thing that I've
time
been
races, Erin, like if you think about it, the countries that are affected at the moment, like you've Denmark,
yeah.
Finland, Germany, you know, the UK, what's actually going to happen if things escalate beyond where anybody wants them to escalate? And if people have, and it sounds really arbitrary, but if people have races booked, well, will flights be going? Will, you know, are Americans coming over to Europe to race and vice versa? Like there's so much ambiguity for people. And I know it sounds really probably meaningless in the context of everything that's going on, but at the same time, it means so much to so many people.
Yeah.
And to keep that level of normality as well going with their training and their racing.
And sport brings a lot of, sport provides us as athletes and coaches with a lot of stability and routines. And so then when you have to change race schedules or training, you're also changing that foundation that we're desperately latching onto when things are really chaotic in the world. And so, I mean, what you said is about the races, really great point. There's a really big race this coming weekend. It's Arrowhead. It's a ultra winter fat bike race. They also have, you know, running, there's different divisions. So there's running / walking, there's skiing. And there was a post on one of the kind of groups that I'm in on social media from a woman who basically said, I don't feel comfortable coming to Minnesota. I'm not going to be racing as much. Sure. You know, it's been on my bucket list and I just don't feel, I can't stomach it. And so for a lot of reasons, right? So that's a personal decision, but that's also really hard when you've been training for this thing, looking forward to it. And then you have to face this decision on whether or not to go. So.
And I think just like you're saying, just the unknown of not knowing what the right decision is and the right amount of being like tuned into everything, or like also like self-preservation and what can we do? What, like, I think there's just a lot of paralyzing thoughts and feelings.
Totally. Yeah.
What advice do you have then for people?
Yeah.
Erin, solve our problem. Yeah, no,
I know, right?
What tips do you have? Because I know you've been talking to a lot of athletes going through this, and like so what advice do you have to athletes kind of trying to navigate these uncertain, is the word we were using last week, uncertain times?
I think there are three kind of themes that have come up, is maybe four. You know, one, to kind of piggyback off of what Katie said, there's no one right way to respond. And there's no one right way to show up. And it can, like, different things work for different people depending on their capacity and their bandwidth and their resources. And so I think just recognizing that there's no one right way to respond or react. And it might be a roller coaster, like that's normal and it's expected. So rather than fighting it, just kind of letting the emotions run their course. As one of my clients said on Monday, it's like, it's weird to feel anxious when I'm supposed to be anxious. Like, it makes sense that I'm anxious right now. You know, there's all these unmarked vehicles in the community and like, we don't know who's going to be targeted and we don't know what they're going to do, right? That makes sense. And so that's the kind of the first theme, is knowing your body is going to do its thing and your emotions are going to do their thing. Like, let them do their job. And because of that, this is where two other themes come up. One, give yourself and your training plan lots of flexibility. And so it might mean, for example, like intensity and maybe VO2 or any sort of anaerobic work, probably not the right decision right now. Depending on how, again, you are responding. So if you're really stressed, then putting in a bunch of high intensity intervals after a long work day, like that might be enough to just overcook you. So communicate with coach about how you're feeling. And then coaches also need to kind of keep an eye on, and they know they're athletes. So it's like, okay, how's her heart rate doing today compared to normal? Like, ooh, that was a really high spike really quick. I don't usually see that with her. So pay attention to some of those subtleties. And then because of that, the third theme is doubling down on the basics: sleep, nutrition, hydration. Like, what are you doing to take care of your body? Because your body is working in overdrive right now, given the chaos of our world. And if you continue to train, nothing wrong with that. I'm continuing to train because I need that for my routine and my stability and my health. But it's also knowing I need to be going to bed on time. I need to have 3 meals and 3 snacks a day, keep drinking my water and electrolytes, et cetera. Because often the self-care stuff is the first to go. Sure. And then the final and fourth thing I've been saying, lean into community. You know, social support is huge in these types of situations. And a lot of us are feeling it, again, in different ways. And we want to kind of retreat and isolate and avoid. That's typically the response, especially when we're stressed. It's just isolating. But lean into friends and community and loved ones for support.
I think those are all great tips, right? And that, And that may mean, right, the group run coming together. So you have, like Joanne was saying before we got on, sometimes sports bring lots of different people together, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
Speaking about the uncertainty generally, last week we had our special episode from Endurance Exchange, and Sarah joined me to talk about the data and the reports, and there were, one of the themes was a lot of uncertainty, people not signing up for races or waiting to sign up for races, or like what are they going to do? And I want to know what you guys think about the state of triathlon. Do you feel good? Do you feel uncertain? Do you feel pessimistic? And this whole idea that we have a huge boom in 20 to 29-year-olds. Give me your ideas. How are we going to keep the 20 to 29-year-olds? What do we need to do?
Make it affordable. They have no money. I'm working with the 20 to 29-year-olds, and most of my athletes are in that age range.
Fair.
I think in Europe the sport is booming. The races, and I'm speaking from an Ironman perspective, the races, Ironman 70.3 Ironman races, they are selling out. Like, I don't know of any races pretty much in Europe that are not either sold out or nearly at full capacity. And that would be Europe and the UK, actually. And they launched 2 new races last week in Versailles and Malaga, and they're going to be snapped up. So the rate of the sport is definitely seems to be swelling and booming in Europe, but that might be completely different to what you guys are experiencing in the States. And as for the 20 to 29 year olds, is it that age group? I think the growth of influencers in the sport of triathlon is probably affecting the number of younger athletes that we're seeing coming through, and I would say the same is true for the running boom that's happening as well. You're getting lots of these people coming together and deciding, and young people who've got a good social media following, and they're putting a running group together. There must be 5 or 6 new younger running groups here in Galway, which is a small city on the periphery of Ireland. It's the furthest point away from, it's the closest point to America, the furthest point away on Europe on the map. And there's a couple of things like the Read and Run Club, that like reading and running. So they read a book and they run, I think. Like it's mad. You know, they get together, they talk about the book. Then there's like singles running clubs. There's loads of different things kind of coming, but they're all in that younger category, maybe slightly older, 25 to 35 age group, but you're still getting that crossover of younger people. So I think social media probably has a lot to answer for with the 20 to 29 year olds.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, and the group aspect, I feel like too, like doing it together, doing it with other people, and like if everybody's doing it with someone else, then that's going to multiply the amount of athletes who are doing it, which is really cool, and I think it's super fun.
Yeah, so and I think the other thing as well is if you're in school, and I don't know if it's the same in the States, when you're in school, you're playing team sports. You know, primarily there's a lot of team sports stuff. Obviously, there's a bit of athletics and triathlon, but once you hit, say, 17, 18, 19, 20, you're in your university times, and if you're not part of a team or you decide not to take part in sports, by the time you get to 24, you're maybe aching for that camaraderie again. So then it's like, we're going to go back into sports, but maybe not into team sports. And so triathlon, running, swimming, cycling, individual sports kind of start to pick up a little bit in those age categories again. So maybe I'm completely off the mark with it, but that's...
No, I think that's right. And there's a lot of like those 20, not to dive back, but there's a lot of the stuff about like the 25-year-olds, right? You think about their last decade, it's been a rough decade, right? Like they want friends and health and experiences. They're big on the like bucket list, do it while you can, right? Before something happens. Joanne, are you guys seeing, I know Ironman races are doing decently well. And that's true, I think, in the US too. But a lot of the data in the US said that overall it's sort of leveled off. Like we're not seeing a boom or a decrease, it's just kind of level. And I'm wondering, are you guys seeing independent races in Europe? Those are the ones that I think are struggling the most here because of this, like people waiting to sign up, the cash flow, the costs, the tariffs.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I can only speak for what I know in Ireland, and that would be a lot of the club races in Ireland are doing very well. The races that are part of our like national federation calendar that would be sanctioned races that have like maybe an add-on of being a national series or a national championship. So they're part of the program. People will, I can't remember what it is. I think it's like 4, you have to do 4 races or 5 races out of the series. There has to be 2 sprints, 2 Olympics, and maybe a longer distance or something. I can't actually I couldn't actually tell you what it is for this year. That's how much on holidays I've been. But the races that have that extra special piece to it for the likes of a series, and that will get a boost in numbers. But I think in general the sport is doing okay. Like I would think it's doing okay. I haven't really heard anything to the contrary, but then I really haven't had my finger on the pulse since I pulled my finger off the pulse at the end of November, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm still in holiday mode, technically.
Technically, it's January 21st. That makes sense.
I'm going on my holidays tomorrow. Yeah. So, but I think in general, it's I think it's doing okay. It's doing okay.
I just want to give a shout out to the independent races, like don't forget to sign up for those. I was talking to the woman who's running Wildflower, if everyone remembers Wildflower Triathlon, and people are waiting so late to sign up that it becomes like an issue for these smaller races. So
I would say
go sign up for Wildflower.
Yeah, Wildflower, Castle Race Series, you've got Outlaw, in the UK. But I would say the rising cost of everything is having a major effect on race entries and race costs, as opposed to the athletes not signing up. Like everything from your barrier to your portaloo to your finish line gantry to your spectator area, every single thing is just, the cost of everything over here is just gone so expensive. So very, very hard for independent race directors to make money. So then that's why a lot of the races in Ireland are run by clubs as opposed to independent commercial race directors. There's not a huge amount of those here. There would be more in the UK. So then a club will have the club finances or maybe get some support and sponsors and things like that, rather than it being a commercial entity trying to go out and get sponsors. If you know what I mean, it's kind of like it's a different setup over here to maybe what it's like for the likes of the Wildflower in the States.
Are you guys signed up for races this year? There's my pop quiz. Has everyone signed up for a race? What are you guys signed up for?
I felt guilty when you were saying the last minute signups, because I was like, oh, that will totally be me, just because I'll be like, oh, I can't plan that far ahead, but I should. So you've inspired me to try and find something to sign up for.
Okay.
An Ironman.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. Go big or go home. No, definitely not an Ironman for me.
Well,
one day I'm just going to be like, yeah, I signed up for this one.
Well,
I hope you're at it.
Yeah. Great.
Give us plenty of notice, because I'll need to fly over to support you.
Yes.
No, I'll make sure you're already there.
Okay, perfect.
Announce me across the finish.
Yay!
I know Erin is also signed up for some crazy big things this year. Let me make sure I get this right. She's going to do Unbound on a single speed for the 5th time.
Yeah. So it'll be Unbound 200, 5th time, first time on single speed. I've done the 100 on single speed, but not the 200.
Yeah, that would just be crazy.
Yeah, because that would be wild.
Why?
So now I'm just
okay. I was going to ask too.
Right, they both want to know why.
Why? So many reasons. And that's also exactly what my coach said. which is an appropriate question. Is like, I was like, because I also have patellar tendonitis. This is what happens when you get old: is your body starts to rebel, and so I have to keep my knees in check. And so I was like, single speed 200, like yay or nay? And she was basically like, love that that's your idea, and also need to understand your decision-making process for this. I was like, good point. So I think the thing that I like there are a lot of things I like about it. One, I just really like the bike. And the bike is super meaningful because I won the frame at Tour of America's Dairyland Omnium like a number of years ago for taking the Omnium. So that was cool. I won the wheel set for being a middle of the pack rider in a single speed division. So it was my first ever single speed race. I won a wheel set for being average. And then I won the handlebars at the Last Best Ride in Montana. So it's just like this, it's really special because, and it's also just a really rad steel single speed bike. Like it's comfy. It's got a different vibe. But then also, so I'm a total diesel engine. So I love flats and descents because I will just motor. Climbing is not my favorite. And when I'm on single speed, it forces me to be a different type of rider and improve as a cyclist because I spin out on the flats and descents and I have to hammer on the climbs if I don't want to dismount and walk up the hill. So I have to go full send approaching these hills. So that also makes it quote unquote fun. I'm using air quotes here because I have to stay locked in and thinking about it. And then it's also one less thing to break because I don't have a front or rear derailleur. So that's great if it's like a peanut butter mud year. And then the final reason is there just aren't a lot of women who do it. And I just have a point to prove. So I just want to show other women like, hell yeah, you can do that. And guys, of course, to be like, yes, we can do this. And we can also kick your butt doing it. So let's go. So those are my reasons.
I was about to ask from a sports psychology perspective, is that last one a healthy reason?
Right? Probably not. I could probably spin it and make it healthy.
Okay.
So that's, I think the date, it's the last weekend of May. I want to say it's like May 30th or 31st this year.
So how do you train for the gravel unbound on a single speed bike?
A lot of gravel single. Well, I am doing it because Minnesota, it's ridiculously cold right now. I'm doing Mid-South double in March. And so that's going to help get some volume in Stillwater, Oklahoma. So that'll be nice. But basically I ride my single speed as much as possible leading up to the event, just like you would a triathlon or any other bike, is like you're getting comfortable with the positioning, the fueling, things like that. And so I'm registered for a bunch of gravel centuries, like almost every weekend leading up to Unbound. Wow. And fortunately here in Minnesota, we've got an awesome like gravel scene. And some of them you literally send in a postcard that says, I am responsible for myself. And like, that's the waiver. And then you're in and it's free. And maybe they'll set up like one of those little burners for camping with grilled cheese at the quote unquote finish line that's very arbitrary. So it's a lot of it is like community, just kind of grassroots vibes. So that's how
amazing.
It's pretty cool.
I feel like this is a good time to take our break where we need to talk to Celine Yeager about the Wahoo Kicker Run treadmill. And given everything about winter training and ice and snow, I feel like this is a great time to take a quick ad break. All right, Feisties, I know a lot of you are dealing with snow and ice and races already on the horizon. So to help, you calm some of that panic, Celine Yeager is joining us, who has been testing out the Wahoo Kicker Run treadmill, which I think could be a handy tool for everybody. So tell me, Celine, you've been running on the treadmill for how many months now? A few months? 4?
It's probably going on 4, I think.
And what do you, I mean, I know you and I are both not big treadmill people. So what do you like about the treadmill? Dislike about the treadmill?
I am a indoor trainer hater in general, Kelly. That is, for people who don't know, I was mostly a cyclist, mountain bike racer, and went into triathlon for a while, went into doing some longer distance running, trail running for a while. But I would always try to be outside whenever I could because I hate everything about indoor training. I hate the staticness of it. I hate the boringness of it. Nothing ever hurts when I'm outside, and it feels like everything hurts when I'm inside. Sure. So I'm selling it hard, this indoor training thing. But I've always really, really hated it. And I recognize the utility of it because in Pennsylvania, where I live, it's one thing to have cold and even snow, but we often have ice, and I have fallen on the ice more times than I care to tell you, and it's bad. Falling on ice, it looks funny and cartoonish, but it's like hitting concrete. It happens fast, and it's. I'm so glad I never broke anything, but like last year when I was training for the Daydreamer Ultra in Patagonia, Arizona, literally the week before, it was like my last long run. I fell so hard on the ice and got this giant bruise on my hip. And I thought, you're an idiot. Just because I was trying to just be outside. So that's my very long answer to that.
To why you don't like the indoor training. But it is handy. And so you have been running on this treadmill, not falling on the ice, hopefully.
I have. And I will tell you, it has changed my viewpoint on running on the treadmill. I actually enjoy running on this treadmill quite a bit, which is new for me, and I think it's because it is such a truly more dynamic experience and a more comfortable experience than I have had running on other treadmills. And we can talk about what features make it so. Yeah. On a very basic level, structurally, they've done a really good job with the platform, that it does feel a lot like I'm running on a cinder track or like a hard pack dirt road. So it's not as hard as sort of, like concrete, but it's also not bouncy.
It's not
you know
mushy,
what I mean?
yeah.
It's like, yeah. It's like sort of a perfect level of firmness, like a good mattress, when you have it, you know when you feel it. But it's also, there's a really dynamic quality to the treadmill. We can talk about the run free mode. We can talk about the terrain mode that it has that allows you to feel much more like you're outside. And that has actually really made a difference for my experience with running inside on the treadmill.
Yes, I think, a lot of people, especially triathletes, have heard of the Wahoo Kicker Run treadmill, and it mimics outdoor running. What is that like? I don't know what that means. Nobody knows what that means until you're on it. So what is this run free mode? What is this terrain simulation dynamic?
They are two different features of the treadmill. One, you can just turn on and off. You don't have to use either of them. The terrain simulation is something that I've only played around with a little bit, and it's interesting. You can turn it on in the app, and it literally every so many seconds or so will subtly tilt the treadmill side to side even, and fore and aft. So it mimics, so you're not just running on like flat metronomic terrain, because that's actually where discomfort and injury and all that kind of stuff happens especially if you're doing a lot of treadmill running. It's so repetitive in the most strict sense of that word. So they try to mimic, because when you're outside, the road tilts a little bit side to side, or it cambers, or it does some things that you just don't get on a treadmill. So you can set that up so it just slightly adjusts the deck of the treadmill to mimic being outside. But even if you don't do that, it has a feature called Run Free. So when you get up, I think you have to be moving at a certain pace. It's not fast. It's like more than 20-minute miles, I think. Okay. So once you hit there, then you run in the center of the belt, and there's a little sensor on the console. And when you speed up, you will naturally start to move a little closer to that sensor, right? And the belt speeds up with you. And then if you slow down and move a little further back, the belt slows down with you. So it almost micro-adjusts it. You're just running as you would run outside, and you're not locked into a pace, which I really like. There's a time and a place where you want to be, sure. If you want to do an interval at 7-10 minute mile, whatever it is, of course you can lock it in. But if you just want to run, it's a really nice feature, because it just allows you to sort of just, vacillate your cadence and vacillate your speed the way you typically would outdoors. And when I do a run on Zwift, which it syncs really nicely to Zwift, I really like that, because as it goes up and down and adjusts to the terrain, I can naturally kind of adjust my pace, and it adjusts with me.
Interesting. Did it take a little while to figure out how this works without running into the front?
I will not lie. It was more like running into the... I tend to run, I will tell you this, and this is a good tip for people who are going to use it. I tend to be one of those people that has my body really close to the console when I run on a treadmill. Like, maybe I'm afraid I'm going to fly off the back, even though there's easily 4 feet behind me. So I had to sort of get comfortable running more centered on the belt, because that sensor needs space to work. If you're right up on it, the Run Free won't work, because there's no room for me to get closer to it. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
So once I set it myself, it got easier. And then I was doing very fast intervals on it, like speed, like sprint work, which is great. And then you're going really, really, really fast. And it does take a little trial and error to modulate from going super fast to like not coming to a stop. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little practice that goes with that, which I thought was kind of fun at first. It's because it's a little funny. There's a million safety features built in this thing, so you're not going to pitch yourself off the back. But it did take a couple of runs of me just playing around with it for me to be like, okay, this is how it works to do that level of I'm like gonna sprint,
sure.
Yeah, and then just
as triathletes
back it off a little
frequently
bit.
do, lots of sprinting.
Oh, I know. I do, because I like to break things up. But
Yeah.
but that that has been that was the one bit of learning curve that I will say it definitely has if you're using that.
So after the winter ends, are you going to keep treadmilling? That's a good question. Yeah.
I will definitely keep treadmilling when the weather is crappy.
Sure.
I will tell you, Kelly, like I live a block and a half from a trail system. So it's really, really easy for me to get on trails from my door. If I did not, I would probably treadmill more often. Like if I had to go somewhere to run, I would 100% use the treadmill year round much more often.
Yeah,
but because I do have a trail system right by my house and it's nice, it's beautiful in PA, then I would,
Right.
I don't run in the dark though.
You don't run in the dark. That's what I'm thinking of what our listeners use treadmills for. And it is like dark and ice, like you said, and bad weather, but also, I mean, the triathletes, right? Like when I was peak triathlon training, which I do not do currently, like the treadmill was you wanted to hit this pace. It's a training tool. It does what erg mode does, right? And so it helps you really do those things. And I think
for that kind of workout, I think that, and when I was doing the same, there would certainly be workouts that my coach would be like, I know you don't love it, but this would be a better workout if you did it on the treadmill. And it is very, very good for that. So because you can just keep steady. It's impossible for me to keep steady where I live. It's undulating terrain. Like it's impossible. So if I actually want to lock in, the treadmill is the place. And
you can't lie to yourself. That's the other. You can't say, oh, my GPS watch might be wrong. No.
That's true too.
All right.
And you can't, it's really hard to look at your watch the whole time. You know what I mean? Like, you're not doing these intervals. It's hard to sort of lock in and keep looking at your watch. But, yeah, so they're very good for that.
So if we've convinced you that you need to be more treadmill training, that this is a different kind of treadmill, we promise. It also looks pretty.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I will say that. It's beautiful.
You can get also a free Headwind Smart Fan $300 value with the code Feisty. So use the code Feisty, Feisty, when you purchase a Wahoo Kicker Run treadmill, and you will get a free Headwind Smart Fan.
And you will want a fan. You will want a fan.
If you coach endurance athletes, you already know this. Women have unique training and performance needs. But right now, the flood of online information on female physiology, things like menstrual cycles, hormones, menopause, fueling, and recovering, can make it hard to know what actually matters and what's just marketing. And that gap matters because misunderstanding female-specific physiology can lead to missed performance gains, preventable health issues, and athletes who feel unseen or unsupported when their bodies don't respond the way they expect. That's why we're hosting a free webinar, Cutting Through the Noise, What Female Athletes Actually Need, and it's just for coaches. This is built specifically for those of you who are endurance coaches who want to coach women well, who want to have confidence, and want to understand the evidence. We're not going to focus on the hype or fear-based messaging or blanket rules. We're going to really break down the sex-specific differences that genuinely affects training, fueling, and recovery, what research does and doesn't tell us, and how to coach across life stages, from regular cycles to perimenopause and beyond. And we're not going to overcomplicate the process. We'll also talk about how to navigate some sensitive conversations and make informed decisions when the science isn't perfectly clear, because let's be honest, most of it isn't. You'll leave with a practical framework that you can apply right away. You'll have clear judgment about what deserves your attention and a strong foundation for supporting your female athletes long-term. Led by Dr. Erin Ayala and Celine Yeager, this online event will be held February 4th at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, 4 o'clock Pacific. That's in the afternoon. It's completely free, but only registered participants will be able to join and get the replays. You can find the link in the show notes or head over to feisty.co. Coaches, we'd love to see you there.
All right, I will admit, I live in California. I don't run on a treadmill that much. I don't ride inside that much. Do you guys utilize indoor training? Erin's like, yes.
All the time. I'm like a trainer queen. And I was on my trainer for 4 hours nonstop
on
on
the bike
Sunday.
or the treadmill?
The bike.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Are
My
you
treadmill,
Minnesotan to start? Are you
Wisconsin.
from Minnesota? Oh, well.
Wisconsin, close
I thought you were
enough.
in
Okay.
Minneapolis. I thought you were in Minneapolis.
I'm in Minneapolis now. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Joanne,
Yeah.
Minneapolis is in Minnesota.
Okay, it's just like
Yeah,
Ireland
yeah,
is
yes.
in the UK. I don't understand. All
It's
the
a
All good.
city.
Similar vicinity. Yeah.
Dublin.
So
to
this
Ireland.
is funny though. My treadmill automatically stops at 99 minutes.
Yeah.
Change it. You can change the set. You can change the
Really?
settings. Yes.
Well, on a Wahoo Kicker run, you can.
Yeah. That's what, honestly, I've been trying to convince my spouse to get one, and one of these
There
days
you
it
go.
might
Well,
happen.
we
It's
were
like a
manifesting that
$300
we would
trainer
all-
from Sears.
Okay.
I don't know if it has those features.
Oh.
It still has like old school iPod plug-in.
Yeah, no.
We were
Like so.
manifesting that Kelly would get us all one there at one point, and
Yeah.
we were doing our best there to do some
Yeah.
running on the treadmills. But Kelly hasn't
You
managed to magic it yet.
you need like all the features for
Yeah.
your winter training.
Like
Yeah,
Wahoo, if you want to help a girl out,
there you go.
I'm your girl. So
Apparently, because you're spending
I spend a
4
lot
hours.
of time. Yeah. So I spend a lot of time indoors. And I used to feel kind of guilty about it. I don't know why. And now I'm just
That's weird.
unapologetic. Like I will be on the treadmill all weekend. Like,
Here's my
maybe-
question for you from from your expertise here. What like mental tricks do you use indoors when you're just staring at the same thing
at
for
the
4
insulation
hours?
in my
Yeah.
basement.
Oh my gosh, I need to hear this because I could never. This was like my nemesis.
Yeah.
The only thing I had was I would watch Hallmark movies for Christmas, but that's not intense. So
Totally.
yes, continue.
Okay, so it depends on what your goals are. If you care about your performance, beyond like finishing. So like if you really want to train and get the most bang for your buck for the workout in terms of your mental game, that's when you use mental skills and strategies to deal with boredom and mindfulness and acceptance of thoughts and feelings and quote unquote embracing the pain cave and exercise induced pain. Like you learn to be as present in the moment as possible when you're on the treadmill instead of like letting your brain go off into la la land. That takes a lot of work and effort, and it's really hard and boring. And it can make a 90-minute run feel much longer. But so for anyone who wants to work on mental toughness, that's what you do. For anyone who's like, I'm just happy to be doing these events. And if I'm good, this is the boat that I'm in. Like if I do a good enough job, then cool. So then I use distraction, Netflix, Spotify playlists, audiobooks. Like I keep myself entertained in those ways.
What is the difference between just distraction and then like it sounded like basically the first thing you said was really like sitting in the discomfort.
Yep.
So would that be like, no, I'm not going to play Netflix. I'm not going to play music.
Exactly.
I will stare at this wall.
Yep.
And think about my feelings. Oh
Yep.
man.
Yeah.
That's the work.
That's why I didn't like it, Kelly.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and honestly, that's what anyone can do on any other training ride or run. They can also do it outdoors. I mean, they're just more kind of, I don't know, outdoors is less boring because of the scenery usually, and the terrain is changing and you've got other things to think about. But for athletes and it's like, okay, so the next question is usually, well, how do I know if I need to work on my mental game?
Sure.
And so if you're having a hard time getting through long rides or runs, or if you do fine on your training and then on race day, things kind of go to shit. If you are having a hard time with quote unquote mental toughness, where like, physically your coach is like, I know you can hit these numbers, but then your brain or your body is just like, no, that's a sign that you could work on the mental toughness. And so that's when I start to bring in those skills with athletes is I'll say like, okay, what's your interval workout for this week? This is the skill that we're going to use. And I want you to apply it on that last interval because we know it's going to show up. And so you do it intentionally.
This is why I was a short course athlete.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was so much more like dynamic. And when I think of long course, when you ask about Ironman, I think I would need to be on a trainer because I would need to practice that. So
right. Yeah.
It sounds like, how like famously like the Soviets like did like the I will run in this corner and stare at a wall kind of toughness. This sounds like that. And here's what it made me think of. We were on a hike this weekend and my husband was carrying my kid in a backpack and he started to have a meltdown and just spent the last 30 minutes like screaming in my husband's ear. And he was like, my husband said, this is the next level of mental training. Like this 100%. Is the step past where you're like, you just have a baby scream at you the whole time.
But they do that in army training. Well, I know they do it over here. There's a thing called Ultimate Hell Week, and they bring civilians in and they put them through their paces. And the final day of the thing, like, it's a hardship. They're awake for I don't know how many days. They're jumping off bridges and they're running through mountains. It's crazy physical stuff, but the sleep deprivation, and they tell them to go to bed, and they get ready for bed, and like 15 minutes later they're in their beds, and 15 minutes later they're waking them up. Like, it's disgusting what they have to do. But the final task is literally either on your knees or hands up, or like your hands could be tied behind you, and you are literally listening to a baby crying in your ears for hours.
Oh goodness.
Hours.
Wow.
Yeah. It is insane. It's called Ultimate Hell Week. It's brilliant. I love it.
There. See, I'll tell my husband. See, he had thought of this idea all by himself.
Yeah. So good.
I guess that's to our actual. So these mental skills that we're supposed to be, that you have somebody practice, like the one skill on that last. What are they?
Yeah. So many. So process goals are huge. So a lot of athletes are like, oh, I want to qualify for Kona, or I want to get a podium for my age group, or I want to PR on the bike split, right? There's nothing wrong with those, but we've got a lot less control over those goals. And then it's also easier to lose sight of the daily grind and your daily training that you need in order to get those goals. So what I really like to do with athletes is like pick one, even it's one process goal for each workout. Like, what is the thing that you've been working on? Is it pacing? Is it nutrition? Is it hydration? Is it focus cues because your form gets sloppy in the second half of the workout? Is it your cadence? Your catch, your pull on the swim? Like, name your thing. And then that turns into the process goal. Like, you create a process goal around that. So it might be, okay, I'm going to do a bottle an hour on the bike, or I'm going to do, 80 carbs an hour for the bike. It could be, I want to keep my cadence above 85, especially for these intervals. So that's really effective mental training, because then you're more intentional when you're training on a daily basis, rather than just focusing on Kona or a Boston qualifier, for example. So process goals are huge. Mental performance, like pre-performance routines, also really important. So like we always say, nothing new on race day. So the same thing applies for mental strategies. So a lot of athletes will be like, oh, well, I tried deep breathing. But if you wait until race day to do the thing, that's like brand new nutrition on race day. Like, you're not helping yourself. And so the mental training is helping the athletes figure out, like, what are you going to need on race day? And then how can you start to apply those things now? Because just like any other skill in any sport, you have to practice it. And so what does that actually look like? It might be, your pre-race routine for mobility or nutrition or hydration or sleep or gear or packing, setting aside like a few, moments the night beforehand for like before a long ride or a brick workout, and being like, okay, what's my goal and game plan for tomorrow? So that could be mental training.
It's funny because going into Rio, so I was basically started as a professional triathlete in 2013, and going into the Rio Olympics, I considered my mental skills training reactive. So I would talk to a sports psychologist, but only when I thought I needed them.
Exactly.
And basically had gotten to the point of like freaking out.
Totally.
And then after Rio, I worked with a sports psychologist preemptively, and regularly I'd have her on my schedule every single month, at least once a month. Half the time I'd go into the calls being like, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about, but it made it so I was like ahead of the...
You're proactive.
Mental disorientation, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it's easier. It's kind of like, if we use another cadence example for the bike, it's like having a proper cadence to stay on top of your gears so that you're not unintentionally, like the elevation starts to climb and, the road kicks up and then you're grinding at 50 RPM. It's like you want to stay on top of things mentally. And so then the sports psychologist can help athletes being like, oh, I noticed how like whatever, like, is there something there? Let's talk about that. It's like, you don't know what you don't know.
What do you notice? When you said I was like, what things do you notice in athletes?
Yeah. So it might be, for example, like they say that something is really important to them, but then their actions don't align with that, because and like a lot of my clients, especially, like they are really good at burning the candle at both ends and taking on all of the things, and they're really busy. And then usually what will happen is like something has to give, and it's often their training, their self-care, setting boundaries with family members. Someone asks for a favor, being like, oh yeah, well, I went to so-and-so's house to help them out, or I helped so-and-so move this weekend. And it's like, wasn't that a key run for you? And so it's saying like, okay, so you said like, this is really important to you. And I also noticed you're doing these types of things. How is that helping you or not helping you? Another thing that I do a lot of that I often notice is their self-talk. Because often if you ask like, what are you thinking about during your runs or your rides or your races, they're often like, I don't know, my mind goes blank. But when they're just free associating and talking, we can start to pick up on those things of like, I can't, I shouldn't, like what are those subtle signs? And then you can pick up on that and saying like, oh, I noticed how you said like, I'm not a climber. Like, says who? And then you get to start to challenge some of those assumptions and then create goals based off of that. And that helps with the self-efficacy, which helps confidence, which helps performance. So
I was sitting here thinking, what about the less subtle negative self-talk that's like, I should just quit this sport and do something different?
Yeah. To that, what I usually say is like, how are those thoughts helping you? Are they serving you? And are they helping you show up as like the mom, the parent, the friend, the athlete, the coach that you want to be? And if the answer is no, then just like let them run their mouth and just like let it go. So it's easier said than done, but those are the things that take practice, right? So then you're running and you're like, I should quit this sport. I suck at this. I'm super slow. Like, oh, there's that story again. I've heard that one before. This is the I suck story. So then when it shows up on race day, it's easier to use that skill and address it.
For me,
like,
it was
I
always
should
like,
quit.
this is normal.
Oh,
Like,
really?
this is like my normal feeling. This is my normal, like, or I remember like being right before Montreal, we were standing in this, like, in the line to get started, and like 4 of us were talking about like, why do we do this?
Yeah.
And it's like, this is probably not the most like beneficial time to talk about it, but I think just when you realize like, oh, it's okay, like similar to what Erin was saying, it's just like
the
it's okay to have those, just don't
anxiety.
like don't go down the
I remember
hole.
very distinctly one race being like, you know what? You should decide later if you're going to quit.
Yes.
Let's not decide that
This
right
is
now.
not the time. Yeah, totally. Yeah. But it's, I mean, what Katie said, it's normalizing the anxiety. Like I used to do the same thing at start lines, like before like bike races where, meet some, local friends and / competitors where, we joke about having to go to the bathroom 10 times before the start of the race. Like that's the anxiety. Those are the nerves. And so then we would just joke about it and being like, it's just a nervous pee. It's just a nervous pee. Once the whistle goes, we're fine. And then of course we are. So you normalize it like, oh yeah, here's the pre-race anxiety.
I was actually listening to an interview actually during the week, and somebody mentioned about getting nervous before. They weren't an athlete, they were like a commentator, journalist, broadcaster, and they talked about performance anxiety and not nervousness. And I thought it was a lovely way to reframe the anxiety and the nervousness, that it was the performance. So it wasn't about, it was all around the things that they could control, like that they might say something wrong or that something might happen. But it was a lovely way to reframe it, that it wasn't them being nervous. It was just performance anxiety. I thought it was quite interesting take on changing the perception of it.
And it's often when it has like that evaluation component attached to it, even if you are the one evaluating yourself, right? Like the general public may not have, it's like we think of like Ironman, and you tell someone you did an Ironman, they're like, cool. Like, how long
like
is that?
Crazy person.
Like they don't know about your power on the bike. Like they don't care about your swim splits. Like they just think that it's really epic that you did that, right? Whereas you might be like, oh, that was the worst one I've ever done, right? So it's like the evaluation is often coming from us. But yeah, it's like it makes sense to be anxious. I get anxious before races, totally.
Okay, but here's you need to solve my major mental problem, ready? But the pre-race anxiety, instead of going to the bathroom, I throw up. But then that's a problem because then I lose all my nutrition. So how do you stop
100%.
How do you stop
Super common. Yeah. Honestly, what I usually do is like as silly as this sounds, we build it into your pre-race routine. So I'll be like, okay, Kelly, when does the stomach start to turn? And then it's like, what do you usually have? What do you try to have for breakfast? And then when does it come up? And then saying like, okay, so then can you try like Scratch Labs high carb mix? And so then you're getting, because then it's more subtle flavor, it's not as sweet, and then you're still getting a bunch of carbs in. Some of my clients will do smoothies in the mornings, and then they become that pre-race routine before their long rides or runs or bricks. They'll do the same smoothie. So then your body starts to adjust to it, and it's like, it's okay.
I'm convinced I actually accidentally trained myself the other way, and now oatmeal just makes me vomit because it's like, oh, time for a race.
I always use that as the example of like, no one wants a hearty bowl of oatmeal on race day, which I do. Like, I just really like oatmeal. But yeah. So usually we'll do like like a high carb mix is kind of the way that we'll usually work around it. And then we just build it in. Because then you're like, well, everything's going according to plan, like, right on time. Because the more you fight it, the worse it's going to get. So. Yeah.
All right, Katie, we were solving my problems. What other problems do you guys have?
I think comparison is a huge one for like comparison, not only to others, but also to past versions of yourself or like different. So I was thinking about it in terms of like winter coming off of like the holidays. And when you have more in your life, you're comparing what you think you should be doing.
Yeah, that's huge, especially like Strava, Training Peaks. Like comparing your, CTL, like fitness score to where you were a year ago. Am I ahead? Am I behind? I often get caught in that trap and like my coach will hold me accountable, but then she'll be like, well, I need to care about it because you care about it. So it's like, if my athletes are asking questions about, certain scores or volume or training stress, then I know that that's what's on their mind. So that's what we have to focus on. So the comparison piece is like, okay, well, how are circumstances different for you then? And like, does that actually make sense for you now? And what I say to a lot of athletes is like, could you get faster, stronger? Probably. Like, I'm sure all of us could to some extent, but what's the cost? And do you want to actually sign up for that? And then for my answer is an easy, like, no, like I'm good. I don't need to train more. Like, I don't want more intensity. I don't want more noise in my head about my performance. So that's usually kind of comparing to yourself. And then for the comparing to others, that's a really hard one because we know from social psychology, it makes sense. There's two types of comparisons. There's upward and downward. And so when we do upward comparison, it's when we're comparing ourselves to people who we admire or look up to, or we think are better than us, or more talented or stronger or skilled. And then downward, a classic example is like, at least I didn't finish last. So you're like trying to make yourself feel better. And so you have to keep those in check to make sure that you're not always comparing yourself upward. Because chances are when you're doing that, they have more skill, more experience, they've been doing it longer, or they have more resources or more time. And like you conveniently forget about all of those things. So I say, just name it because it's going to happen.
Okay, Erin. So when we talk about endurance athletes, but triathletes specifically, what are like the most common mental, I don't want to say issues, challenges they face?
Things to work on. Growth opportunities.
Right.
I think comparison is huge. And like, we get so many athletes, where I am, we like in my practice and we serve folks in all different, frankly, countries at this point, which is pretty cool. But a lot of them are like, 20 to 50-year-old masters athletes. And a lot of them are endurance. And often they like lose sight of joy in sport where they start taking it so seriously where it becomes a stressor and it's taking more than it's giving. So I think one of the biggest mental challenges is like, how do I find joy again when I care so much about this? And I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, but also that's what I've done my whole life and that's what works for me. So what should I do differently? And I'm not going to tell them to not care so much, but that's kind of how it works with peak performance. Because if all of us right now think about the races we've done where we've put the most pressure on ourselves, it's probably one of our worst performances. And then if we all think about the best races we've ever had, it was probably the days we were like, F it, just let her rip. And we went in with no expectations and we did really well. So often it's helping them with the relationship with sport and like the comparison cycle of what they think they should be doing and then what they're actually doing and finding a new norm in a sense.
It's funny because my best year was in 2019, and it's when I went from I need to do this to let's see what I can do.
Right.
Wow.
Totally.
Why did you think you needed to do it, Katie?
Because I was having performances, I was getting on the podium, so I was starting to expect being on the podium. Like I'd qualified for the Olympics, so those expectations were like Erin was talking about in the beginning. They were all outcome based, and whenever I got on the start line, it felt like I needed to prove myself. It was a test, and something I talk to like our athletes about is just racing is not a test. Racing is to show you like you can practice all the process goals and focus on what's going to lead you to probably a really good outcome if you check more of those goals off. But I always like going into it, like just freeing myself of like, this is fun. There's no losing. It's only we're going to learn from it. And it was. Yeah,
that's
really
the ticket,
resonated.
which is like so hard in a world where, especially for any athletes who have very real performance goals or needs or even requirements, and we think of like collegiate athletes or even, folks on high level teams or sponsors, like trying to perform to meet expectations. When that pressure becomes too much, that's where the foundation starts to crumble and we start seeing the cracks in the mental game. And it's often kind of like losing sight of the bigger picture, having a harder time looking at the just like perspective taking, and where every race becomes a test, as you noted, Katie. And it's just like, okay, well, what do I have on the day? And I always say, stay curious. You never know what you can do. So like let her rip and see what happens and let go of those expectations and try to find more joy. And then that's what the mental skills work is, because they have to start doing that stuff now, like in training, not on race day.
You can't just find joy on race day all of a sudden.
Right.
But I think it's so interesting. I saw a graph once and it was like when you first get started, your way of doing an activity is like you're going in to see what you can do to have fun. And then you get to this like middle ground of like taking it too seriously, like tuning into more staticky things than like actually helpful things. And then you get to the like highest performers and they're back on the other side again, where it's like eating gummy bears to fuel themselves and like going into their races or competitions or games or whatever more with a playful mindset. And fine-tuned like mental skills for sure. But it was like one that I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely true, where I feel like the ones who are the most tied to their results are somewhere in that middle ground.
I agree. And that's where, and one of the things that's tough, we look at the research on like athletic identity and how much, if we all have like a pie and different slices of the pie represent different parts of our identity, whether it's being an athlete or a triathlete or a parent or a coach or, other like jobs, whatever it is. The bigger the athletic identity, the bigger the risk when it comes to like psychological distress and frustration from performances, because you're tying your self-worth and your identity to your results. And that's where things get really sticky, because you can't tell someone to care less. But that's kind of like, that's how they interpret it when you're like, don't be so hard on yourself, or, don't make your expectations too high. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's a really double-edged sword, because so then usually what I'll do is I'll say, what do you want your vibe to be on race day? Aside from fast and strong and competitive, like what would success look like for you? And then that's what we set those performance goals around. And then it's also being like, okay, where could things go awry in your race? I like to do like implementation intentions or contingency planning. So it's like, okay, if there were 3 things that could really go awry or throw you off on race day, what would they be? And then we talk about each situation and how they would respond in each situation. Because a lot of athletes are told like, just think positive and visualize success. But like, how often do races go perfectly as expected? Like things happen. And so you have to be able to prepare for that. And having a game plan can also help them with like being able to rally and pivot and being more resilient. So
I used to go into warm-ups being like, this warm-up is going to feel terrible, but I know it's going to feel terrible. And like
Exactly.
It honestly works so well, because I'm like, you can't expect things to feel good, and especially race whatever week you're leading up to, that's when everything shit hits the fan, like
taper tantrums.
Yeah, you're like every niggle comes up to the surface. Your mind is just like, I'm not ready, and so
And normalizing that, I think, is huge. Like for you to be able to go in, because otherwise what happens, I see this too, like warm-ups for sure, is like, oh, my legs feel like junk. I'm not going to do well. It's like, says who? And
Yeah.
who says that you have to feel good in order to perform well? Because you don't need, like, those two things don't have to happen together. You can feel awful and still perform well. So if the warm-up doesn't feel great, like, that's okay. It's not the race. But then the same thing will happen for like long runs or rides or like big brick workouts where they're like, oh, I felt awful. I'm not ready. Like, it's not a test. The purpose of that workout is to get you that training stress and to get you that fatigue and that volume so that your body can absorb it. And then you're ready in a few weeks, not now. But it's that testing mentality that really gets us.
Oh, Joanne, you got ready to say something too. What were you going to say?
So I was going to say, you know, like we're in the middle of winter, right? In certain parts of the world, it's the middle of the summer, but we're coming out of like a busy festive period. People have picked their races. They have some goals. But how do we, if you haven't set your goals, if you're kind of just plodding along and, you know, Katie hasn't picked a race, I haven't picked a race, although I kind of have an idea of what I'm doing. For people who are like on the fence that aren't like having these big scary goals for this year so far, how do we stay motivated? What would be your top tips for us to just keep tipping away with our training and keep on top of the movement and the motion and the importance of exercise, that it's away from the competition, or even for athletes who are the ones that are going to be last across the finish line and that's just what they do and they know that that's where they're going to be? What would be your top motivational tips for those guys or girls, myself included?
Yeah, I'm huge on like people recognizing and naming their values. And there are different ways that you can do it. You can, do like an online quiz. If you search for, values card sort online, you'll find a lot of different examples. The whole idea behind it is, there's one that I love by, she's an illustrator, Lisa Congdon, who's also a gravel cyclist based in the Pacific Northwest. And she's got this values card deck and it's like 70 cards of different values. There's like harmony, there's growth, there's fun, adventure, integrity, honesty, authenticity. And I always say values are like pizza or ice cream. Everyone has a different opinion and you naturally are going to gravitate towards certain ones. So it's like my favorite kind of pizza might be, I love anything spicy. And that's not something that that's my vibe. That's just what I like. Values are similar. So I know what my values are. And so then once I know that, then I can take my training and figure out what it looks like in the context of those values. So let's say someone really likes fun and adventure. Well, like, okay, cool. How can you plan your training so that it includes more fun and adventure? If it's family, then okay, how can we get the family involved, right? Like more trips and hiking with a baby on the back, right? Like how can we incorporate that? And I think that's where people lose sight of it. It's like we have these, copy and paste training plans or they're following whatever coach gives them, but they're not talking about why they're doing it in the first place. And the why can also change. Like that's okay too. So I tell people do the values card sort like once a year just to like recalibrate and check in with yourself and then create your game plan. Otherwise, you don't know where you're going. So you have to it's like the compass. It tells you what direction to go with your training.
Are they ever at odds? Like, I want to qualify for Kona, but my values are adventure and fun.
And I don't swim.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's a good question. I think they can be. Though one of the things, there's kind of like a debate in the field on whether or not achievement can actually be a value. Because it's like, well, achievement is kind of this thing, you're checking this box. So how do you know, like when you're actively achieving, what does that look like? And there's probably more of a value underneath that. So it's like an onion. So it's like, okay, what is it about Kona that you really like? And then what about that? And then what about that? And you keep going until you get to the bottom where you're like, I don't know, that's just how I am. And like, that's when you found your value. Or if it's like, I don't know, it's just the principle of the thing. So I'll often also say to people, I was like, think about your pet peeves or like training buddies or people that you just like, or situations where you just can't let it go. Chances are it was somehow hitting your value system.
Sure.
So.
Oh, I can come up with those. No problem.
Right? There you go. So then you build your training around the opposite.
I also have seen a decent, we'll wrap up, but here, and we won't end this, but I've also seen a decent amount of research where there's a lot of correlation between non-sports related mental health issues and endurance sports. And I'm sure you've gone deep down this hole. Correlation or causation, Erin?
Correlation. Yeah. I think, and I see this a lot with trauma too. I mean, like mental health includes trauma, right? But I have a good amount of like sober athletes who have battled addiction and now they're practicing sobriety, and sport, especially endurance, is like a big vehicle for that. I don't think it's chance. Like I think the correlation is there for a reason. Sport, I think there's something about, it's like endurance athletes struggle with moderation. So it's like for folks who have a history of addiction, for example, it's like that outlet, like that feeds them. And they've managed to channel it in a different direction that is arguably more adaptive and healthier. I think for folks with a lot like anxiety, depression, disordered eating, it's like sport can exacerbate those issues because they care so deeply about sport. But then you could argue, well, if they weren't doing it, would they be worse off? And probably, depending on the situation, because they may not have the structure, the health and wellness, the training, the social support or community that comes with it, the passion. So it's kind of like, yes, and what's the alternative? So it's tricky. One of my pet peeves, though, is when people are like, oh, running is my therapy. I don't need a therapist. Like, bullshit. Like, we all need a therapist. Like, running is great it could be therapeutic, right? You're sitting with your thoughts and feelings, you're learning about yourself, you're unpacking stuff, but there's something different when someone else is noticing the things that you may not be aware of and calling you on it with empathy.
You're like, I didn't go to grad school to be replaced by a run.
Right. Yeah. Like,
careful, or it could be AI replacing you.
That's Someone recently compared that to getting sushi at a gas station. Like, you could do it. I wouldn't recommend it.
Does anyone else have any urgent last minute tips they need from Erin before we wrap up here? Any mental training skills questions?
No, but we should have a part 2.
Maybe we'll come back in like race season.
Yeah.
And talk more about like getting ready for racing.
Oh yeah, like race day planning is huge. Yeah, I'm totally down for that.
And then maybe Katie and Joanne will be signed up for races by then. So
yeah, we can use you as our guinea pigs.
There we go.
Can't wait.
It'll be like a live sports psych session on goal setting.
Oh boy.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, Erin. And Erin is the host of our new relaunched Feisty Women's Performance podcast. She has different fascinating experts on every week to talk about women's health and performance questions, sleep, pregnancy, training, coaching. Go and subscribe to that feed, and we will have her back later this year. Thank you.
Thank you.